All right, let's go to the AFC Championship. Started at 3. We had to work backwards because, this is what everybody just saw. But Kansas City Chiefs 17, Baltimore Ravens 10. The Chiefs are off to the Super Bowl for the 4th time in 5 years, 4 times in 6 years with Patrick Mahomes as starting quarterback. And it started right away, man. Like the Chiefs they have this calm about them in the playoffs, and they came out, and when you think about it, they had 2 drives. They scored 7 on both, right? 2 touchdowns. First drive, 10 plays, 86 yards. The next drive, 16 plays, 75 yards, right? They were back-to-back drives to kick things off, right? Yeah. 14 points. And and then they even had a failed 4th down in there. Like they were moving the ball at will. All that said, like the Ravens did have opportunities. Their defense did eventually crack down a little bit, slow down the Chiefs' offense, but it was just too little, too late. And the Chiefs' defense, man, another great game from them as a unit.
Yeah, both defenses, I think, played really well. Baltimore's, as you said, they had a bit of a shock right out of the gate, but overall, I think they did play extremely well. Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs' offense, was so good on 3rd down in particular. But yeah, both defenses were spectacular. And when you're talking about, so sometimes you sort of hear these teams talked about in abstractions of, well, this team has been there before, talking about a playoff game like in 2018 or whatever. You're like, how many people were playing in that 2018 game that are still on this team? Like that's not the same thing. But the Chiefs have literally every year with Mahomes, like the baseline is the AFC Championship game. This team has been there before, and most years, in fact. So, I said it from the beginning. 2 teams were playing with a weight of history in different directions this playoffs. There's Dallas, who is expecting it to go wrong the second anything goes wrong. And there's Kansas City, where it doesn't matter what goes wrong. The Chiefs are like, it's fine. Yeah. Mahomes and Kelsey are unstoppable in the postseason. And in this game, Kelsey went past Jerry Rice for every stat, having gone past Gronk for, the most touchdown connections the week before. Mahomes to Kelsey are inevitable and unstoppable, and they know that. And now they're just like, it doesn't matter. Sure, it's Baltimore this time, but it's the same difference. We're going to win anyway.
In the Chiefs, look, when the Chiefs won it in 2019, we were doing a lot of quick-hitting content at the time at PFF, and I remember a lot of quick-hitting content where we all said, well, how many rings are the Chiefs going to win? How many rings will Mahomes and Reed get? And we're all saying like 3, 6, 5, whatever the number was at the time, right? We're all giving our answer because they felt inevitable then. And, then they lost a Super Bowl, then they lost in the AFC Championship, and then they trade Tyreek Hill, and they still win it last year without Tyreek Hill. And then this year, they're in the Super Bowl again in a year that was very uncomfortable for Chiefs fans, right? The offense was, they had a stretch where they were 3-5. The offense was very inconsistent. They were dropping passes left and right. Mahomes had the worst statistical year of his career, but here they are still in the Super Bowl. And those are the types of, like the Patriots in 2018 had a similar type of season, right? They lost on the number 1 seed on the Miami Miracle. Brady was not having his best season. They were pivoting the offense to a run-first offense. It was like, oh, they're in transition. The dynasty's over, and the Patriots just go and win the Super Bowl in a year that wasn't their best.
Right.
And that's where the Chiefs are right now. And I know this is the best defense of the Mahomes era, but it's the worst offense of the Mahomes era. But once the playoffs started, the team that would have, I know they had some holding penalties today, but the team that would have drops, key penalties, they were the offense where we said one guy screws it up on every play for much of the season.
Yeah.
Right? Great throw, drop. Whatever. Bad throw when guy's wide open. Another time nobody's open and there's a holding. Whatever it was. One guy screws up every single play. And now they're not. They're not screwing it up. Like they just got to the playoffs. They're like, we're going to play clean football and we're going to feature our stars and we're the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating how they treated that whole thing because if you look at, it was everybody. It's not fair to limit it to one person early in the season. Travis Kelce was dropping passes that he doesn't drop. Marquez Valdes-Scantling was dropping passes that he does drop. Kadarius Toney was doing everything wrong because it's Kadarius Toney. But all the way through that, Mahomes kind of steadfastly stood by his guys, even to the point where he was sounding ridiculous. He's like, yeah, that I could have made that throw slightly better. The one that hit Valdes-Scantling like in the face, that's on me. I could have led him a bit further. I could have put it right in his hands, 50 yards away. That's my fault. It's my bad. And, they kept sticking with those guys. And I think you're seeing why. Like, Kelce has been back. He's turned into playoff Travis Kelce, and he looks exactly the same as he's always looked in his career. Valdes-Scantling has come up huge in the playoffs and made several big plays and got the one, right at the end of this game where they took a shot on third down to get the win, essentially. He trusted Valdes-Scantling on that play. Right? Not a lot of other people would have said that's a good idea. And then the other thing they've done is maybe the one guy that was like a consistent thing, Kadarius Toney, has just been sat the hell down. And
he would not show up. He had a nice Super Bowl last year.
Right. And Kadarius Toney, it was listed as like he's out from this game with, I forget, it was like an ankle injury and personal reasons. And he's come out and saying like, I'm fine. So they've sat him down.
Personal reasons.
Right. I mean, they have said, look, we trust the other guys. We don't trust Kadarius Toney, and we're going to solve the whole problem by trusting everybody and removing the one that we don't trust. And it's worked.
Yeah. I mean, look, Mahomes deserves a ton of credit because he is like just locked in. You mentioned how well he takes care of the ball, and he did that again in this game. There's just no negative plays. He ends up getting sacked twice, but they were a little bit later in the game.
And look at what it took to get him down on some of those plays. That one where he kind of spun around was like kneeing on the dude trying to tackle him and still looked like he got out of it and then eventually got taken down by a couple people.
And you know what you're getting into. Like, if you get close, you can't just tackle him like any other quarterback. I feel like we're at a special time of quarterbacks being really good at avoiding sacks. You have Brock Purdy doing it. Lamar Jackson had the incredible one in this game. Yeah. But finishing plays is very difficult. Maybe we are underrating sacks because it's difficult to tackle them now.
These were the first sacks that Mahomes had in the playoffs since last year's AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So like I said a couple shows ago, I mean, there were some spectacular plays in this. There's the one where he's falling down and he throws it up to Kelce and puts it in a perfect spot. I mean, those plays are real. But I think the superpower is the lack of negatives.
Yes.
Because in the first half, he had only 2 or 3 completions. They were throwaways, right? It was just things weren't there, and he doesn't miss a ton of throws. He's not all over the place from an accuracy standpoint. I think he probably creates some of the open throws with his movement and everything, but he's Drew Brees-like in like the lack of mistakes, and then you add the highlight reel plays as well, and that's what makes the whole thing special because Josh Allen's got the highlight reel. A lot of guys have highlight reel plays, but Mahomes is so good at avoiding negatives, whether it's sacks, whether it's missed throws, or turnover-worthy plays.
Yeah, I don't think Mahomes, in a weird way, like normally you come out of a Chiefs game and everything is Mahomes, right? I don't think he's going to get enough credit coming out of this game because the focus is rightly on the defense and what a good job they did. And because the Chiefs didn't score a lot, it's going to be, Mahomes didn't do anything in this game.
I think he was getting credit all along the way. You were watching.
That's because Tony Romo was on commentary. That's not a real barometer of human beings.
At the same time, I didn't check. I mean, there was a point in the second half where they had like 70 yards, and the Ravens had 200, and then until the 32-yarder to Valdes-Scantling to seal it. But even that play, the third downs that you mentioned,
yes,
they did a good job. The Chiefs
on third down. Mahomes was 10 of 14 for 113 yards. That's 8.1 yards per attempt. He had another rushing first down in there as well off scramble. Like, he kept the ball moving on the most critical plays. Baltimore's defense was doing an incredible job on the Chiefs' offense, but there were several times where they just couldn't get on the field because Mahomes kept making a play, kept finding a way of getting that drive going and keeping it alive.
So just to back up a little bit, early on in the game, the Chiefs come out. They have that quick drive, touchdown, Mahomes to Kelce on the back shoulder. And then the Ravens had gone 3 and out. But they come back. Lamar Jackson to Zay Flowers, again, on the scramble drill, 54-yard touchdown behind. It wasn't 54. What was I'm looking at his long. It was a 30-yard touchdown behind the defense. And it was like, all right, we're in shootout territory here. Now Lamar is saying, it kind of broke the ice. Because what you mentioned, I do think the they've been there before narrative can be overrated. We say that every single time where you think, well, the more experienced team has to have the advantage because they've been in the playoffs, they've been in the championship game, they've been in the Super Bowl, whatever it was. And for years, it's like, well, if that was the case, then the best, the more experienced team would always win. But that doesn't always happen. But in this game, like, you could kind of feel it, man. Right? The Baltimore, the whole stadium's rocking, and the Chiefs just come out and they're like, we're the defending champs. We're unstoppable.
Yeah.
But the Ravens counterpunched. They did counterpunch after that, and they came back with their own 75-yard drive in Lamar, and it felt like, okay, now like the stadium came back and they were back. But the Chiefs continued to just, take care of business. Man.
That's the thing. It's the inevitability and the consistency. That's where I think you start to draw from that. We've been here, we've done it. It's the calm. You don't get panicked because the game, like it doesn't matter what happens in the game. You just keep going. You know you're going to eventually make enough plays to get it done. And that's why almost all those third downs, Mahomes just finds a way. Whereas, yeah, sure, Lamar may have made a couple of plays here or there, and they got themselves back into it and all those kinds of things. But it kept being a thing, right? It didn't go away. They didn't get the lead back and, start scampering off into the distance. The pressure remained on them. And as long as the pressure remained on you, you're faced with that situation every single time a critical down comes up. And eventually, Lamar cracked, throwing the ball into the triple coverage, and, all she wrote.
That's really what it was. Like, so you mentioned, hey, Mahomes won't get all the credit. And look, the stat line is a weird one. He's 30 for 39 for just 241. That looked even weirder before the 32-yarder to clinch it, right? I mean, he was averaging 5.5 yards per attempt at the end of the day, because at the second half was a whole bunch of underneath stuff, underneath, and the Ravens were coming up and hitting and tackling and doing a great job of limiting yards after the catch. But the point that you made was, that I'm making too, is just the lack of mistakes. I think Mahomes was the better quarterback today, not because of the 2 or 3 highlight reel plays that you might see. The downfield pass to Valdez-Scantling, the falling throw to Kelsey, the scramble. It was just because he wasn't making mistakes. He wasn't turning it over, wasn't taking negative plays, and he was just throwing completable passes where his guys could create after the catch over and over and over again. Whereas the Ravens on the other side found no rhythm offensively, no run game, because everybody's going to ask about why didn't they ran the ball 6 times with their running backs.
That's
2
crazy.
times with Zay Flowers.
So
I want to talk about that in a second. But like, if you're just looking at what did Mahomes bring to the table, what did Lamar bring to the table, Mahomes just made no mistakes over and over and over again and just kept running the offense and executing. And Lamar was just off. And every now and again, it's like he's missing a throw, thrown into coverage, got away with one that he should have had 2 picks in there, taking sacks that he shouldn't take to fall out of field goal range. Those were the mistakes that added up for the Ravens.
I think you can broaden it to just the teams. I mean, Kansas City this season, their offense, the defining narrative of them before they hit the playoffs was mistakes everywhere. Whether it was penalties, drop passes, like just bad plays, they could not stop making mistakes across the board. And as soon as the postseason hit, they just clicked their fingers and like, that's stopped now. We're just not going to make mistakes anymore. And now you have to deal with the real Kansas City Chiefs. It's felt like the Patriots did this before during their dynasty run, where they didn't feel great during the regular season. They did enough, to get to the playoffs every year. And as soon as they hit the postseason, the inevitability of Tom Brady in the playoffs just took over and they got themselves together. And I don't know if that's just, it's a long season. You can't be on every single week, and some weeks you're going to be off. But as soon as it really matters, those teams with championship pedigree, or even simply a championship type of quarterback, right, can just say, enough. We're done with this now. We're all back on track, and we're not going to screw up. But they didn't make mistakes. Meanwhile, the Ravens, who have been, one of those teams that hasn't really made mistakes this season, like everything they've done has been right, they couldn't get out of their own way in this game in a variety of different ways. Whether it was Lamar Jackson making some mistakes, they had stupid penalties left, right, and center. Zay Flowers had like one of the dumbest stretches of like a 5-minute sequence I've ever seen, where he makes a big play over L'Jarius Sneed, right? Gets up, taunts him on the way. So boom, big play, 15 yards is coming off that because you just taunted the guy on the way up. And not even like an arguable one, right? We can debate whether he should have been allowed to do it, but he isn't, right?
Right.
So he gets up, like stands over him, spins the ball right in his face, blatant taunting penalty. That was dumb. Then he does the whole reaching out to try and score at the goal line thing. Sneed punches the ball out. So Sneed in his, gets his own revenge back, punches it out, ball goes in, touchback. So they go from potential touchdown to touchback, lost the ball. And then he ends up crowning it all by punching the bench in frustration and hurting his finger. I mean, so it became Baltimore's players that couldn't get out of their own way. Mark Andrews dropped a pass that, okay, it was a difficult one, but Mark Andrews makes those catches.
Right.
Not today. penalties all over the place, like ridiculous penalties left, right, and center. And some of them, like the Kyle Van Noy one, I think was a pretty weak call, but was it Matabike just clubs Mahomes in the head as he's trying to run by him? The Roquan Smith thing where he like runs over the guard on the what I think was probably an intentional jump offside, but like jump offside, don't run over the guard. That's a different penalty.
Make it count.
Yeah, so they just, in a season where the Chiefs' offense has been making so many mistakes, they stopped doing it, and Baltimore across the board made way too many mistakes to win this game.
During the Patriots dynasty, my dad, who doesn't know a ton about football, he watches on Sundays or whatever, he would always ask me, he'd be like, are the Patriots that good, or is every other team just that bad? And there was so many years where it's like, it's just a bad year of football, and they just happen to be the best. And we might be at that point with the Chiefs. And then they play like it, because the Chiefs ended up with 3 penalties, and they were all pretty costly. It was like a holding on the Rashee Rice screen, which is a great call on 3rd and long, could have been a touchdown. They were all holding calls, right? 2 of them were back-to-back.
The officiating in this game I thought was bad. Not slanted, just bad.
See, I thought of all the games that we've talked about, the officiating, this was not that bad.
I thought this was pretty bad. I thought
the point I wanted to make though on some of the Ravens ones that you talked about, it was like, look, if you hold, you hold, right? It's like, oh, it's a bad play, whatever. It's a penalty. The Ravens, or like the teams playing the Chiefs, like if you're Zay Flowers, I know it's an emotional game and everything, just don't taunt. Just don't taunt. It's an unforced error.
That was stupid, yeah.
The Kyle Van Noy personal foul, that was just before the half. There was a little jostling back and forth. Travis Kelce looked like, and it came after a 1-yard run.
Yeah.
Right? This is like, the Chiefs are really good. And if you're playing the Chiefs, they don't need your help. Like, you can't give them your help. They're already really good. So it's a 1-yard run, and it was like Kelce just jabbed just enough to get Van Noy the 15-yard penalty in a 2-minute situation before the half that led to a field goal.
The reason I think it was bad, number one, I think there were a few bad calls, but I also think that they were wildly inconsistent with what they decided to call. So that Kyle Van Noy penalty, like you can look at that if you just look at that film and say, okay, he ran in, he pushed him, that was stupid, it's a penalty. You can find 5 more of those in that game they didn't call.
Right.
Like this had been a pretty chippy game. Right back, Arthur Millette should have been ejected from the game before it even started. He punched a dude in the pregame warm-ups. That's an ejection. It is. I wouldn't like it if they'd done it, but if they had ejected him pregame, you couldn't have argued with it. Like so they had already set the standard that we're going to let quite a lot go in this game, and then Van Noy sort of runs into a scuffle, shoves the guy a little bit, and they're like, penalty. I didn't think the hold to take off the Rashee Rice touchdown was a hold. They're taught to like slingshot the guy around on a screen. Again, you can find that in most screens, not most. You can find that in a lot of screens that get completely ignored. And it's the AFC Championship game. You're going to tend to let those borderline ones go. I don't think they should have called that as a holding call. And then they missed one late in the game where Justice Hill trips, blatantly trips Chris Jones in the end zone. Remember the punt goes to the 1-yard line. It's like, here's a Lamar Jackson signature drive. Are you going to be John Elway or are you going to be playoff Lamar Jackson? And very first play, Chris Jones gets pressure right up the middle. Lamar gets out of it, makes a play. One of the reasons he did that is because on the way through, Justice Hill just trips him. Just sticks out his left leg and Jones goes flying onto the turf. He gets up hurt because of it. Nothing. He showed a clear replay of that, didn't even mention it. I thought this was a pretty badly officiated game.
What did you get the defensive hold by the Chiefs too on one of the Ravens' final drives?
No.
They just took somebody and threw him to the ground. And I was thinking,
it didn't get called, right?
It didn't get called. So that's like when I'm looking at the officiating, the stuff that they called, for the most part, I think it was legit. I think what you're bringing up is maybe there's some other stuff that they just missed or was inconsistent. But there was a play, it was either an illegal contact or a hold. And you're allowed to illegally contact if the quarterback it's not an illegal, it's just contact.
Right.
If the quarterback's outside the pocket. Lamar was about to scramble, but I think it was more hold than anything. Anyway, I don't think it was egregious in this game, but I do think the Ravens' mistakes just added up. There was the unforced penalties, Zay Flowers, Kyle Van Noy. There was Zay Flowers fumbling at the goal line because at the end of the day, the Ravens still ended up kicking the field goal to get within a touchdown. They were a yard away from having a touchdown on the board, and the Ravens had figured out the Chiefs' offense for the most part. They had figured them out. And look, maybe the Chiefs got into conservative mode and run the clock and trust the defense or what have you. But the Ravens defense made great adjustments. And it didn't feel good early if you're a Ravens fan, right? You got owned in those first two drives.
They got shocked right out of the gate.
They did. They definitely got shocked. And that was where like the championship pedigree type of thing, I don't think it always matters. But it's mattered with the Chiefs this year because they've played completely different football. The last 3 weeks, this team has looked completely different on the offensive side of the ball than they have pretty much most of the season. The defense has been pretty steady all season. They'll have little lulls. They'll give something up. But, man, I think Spags deserves a ton of credit. They were blitzing like crazy. They seem to have a lot of answers. And I think what Spags does, I think what this Chiefs defense does, they take away the intermediate pass. They make you either you got to hit one over the top into a tight window, or you got to hit the underneath stuff and create after the catch. And they had a couple big plays. They hit a couple of them. They hit Zay. They hit Zay Flowers on a couple of them. But you have to hit on your big plays, and you have to execute on the stuff underneath. There's not going to be the I say easy, the 10 to 15 yard range where the Niners make their money and the best offenses make their money. That's like blocked off against the Chiefs. And they just did a really good job of that again. And the Ravens never found any rhythm.
No, they didn't. And a part of it is going to be coming back to that. Why did they never run the ball?
I was going to pose that question to you.
This game they felt like a game where they were down big, and the classic game. You're down big, you're trying, you abandon the game plan, and you start passing all game because that's the only way back into it. They were never down more than 10 points in this game and barely handed the ball off against the Chiefs defense where like Buffalo ran the ball on them. This has been a defense where running the ball against them has kind of been a weakness. And you have Lamar Jackson to, make it even more difficult to defend.
There was a lot of plays there too, I think. So why did they not run the ball as much? Well, I don't know if it was as simple as we're going to do what you don't think we're going to do. We're going to pass the ball more than because Buffalo had success. I thought the Chiefs offense, the way they had that ball control in their first two drives, that's the game plan we talk about on the show every week.
Right.
This is what I would do against the Chiefs to keep them off balance. And the Chiefs executed it against the Ravens. And I don't think that would have thrown them off because they were still on their script. They were still in their first 10 to 15 plays after that stuff was happening, right? So something game plan oriented, or unless it was just looks from the Chiefs. They were stacking the line so much and daring the Ravens to throw, and they just said, okay, we got to throw because that's what the look says. But I think the Chiefs deserve a ton of credit to maybe take them out of that and dare them to throw and dare them to make to create lower percentage plays. And we talk a lot about the fourth down decisions in the other game. Both of these teams on their first touchdown drives made a fourth down decision. The Chiefs one was easier. It was in that no man's land, 4th and 1. They go for it. They connect. But the Ravens, their only touchdown drive, they needed to convert a 4th and short in their own territory, on their own 30, and they went for it. That was Lamar goes right up the middle on a power run and picks up 21, which, by the way, a lot of people were like, man, Lamar takes that to the house a couple of years ago.
Did look like it.
Yeah.
I did wonder why he didn't just outrun the safety for a touchdown.
Relative to what he's done in the past.
It looked like, more than anything else, it looked like he didn't believe he was going to make it, which is why it became like I would have liked to know what would have happened had he simply trusted his speed and headed for the corner and tried to outrun him. But instead, he sort of went. I don't know if it was because he got through the defense and was sort of not really anticipating, like just hadn't got his hands ready for it. But yeah, it definitely looked a little weird. I kind of would have expected him to score there.
So Lamar, I thought that they just needed more big time Lamar plays. When we had complimented the Ravens throughout the season, I would compliment them and say they have a lot of different answers. They have a power running attack that they've always had. They have a zone running attack now, which has expanded. They always have Lamar on the keeper. They have a different group of playmakers. Mark Andrews was back.
They used on that play.
What's that?
Which they used on that play. That was QB power,
Right. We can run downhill. We could do it with a power back. We could do it with a speed quarterback. We have Zay Flowers on horizontal type of plays, yards after the catch and jet sweep type of plays. We have a downfield passing attack. We have speed. We have quickness. They have all these different answers. But at the end of the day, I just wanted to see Lamar have more Lamar takeover plays. And I thought there were points in this game where the Chiefs would rush 3 or 4, and maybe it was just all the confusion. They had so many blitzes, and it was that, like we talked about the Vikings, we're going to blitz, we're going to drop out, and it created just enough confusion. Because there were a lot of times when they rushed 3 or 4, and I'm like, Lamar, just go one read and run. And he just looked so hesitant, and he looked like he was overly trying to win from the pocket. Like, I know you can win from the pocket, but I think he needed a rush for 100 yards like he did last week against the Texans. You needed some big plays from Lamar running the ball, or you just needed, a little bit more just straight up pure run game with their backs, with Lamar a part of it, and doing something to Kansas City that they have not done a great job of stopping this year.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think two things can be true at the same time. Like, this was a game where Lamar Jackson needed to carry this offense to victory, and he didn't manage to get that done. He made some impressive plays. Like, we had the touchdown to Zay Flowers early in the game where he's tackled. I mean, the guy has him. Was it Drew Tranquil? Like, has him sacked, or Leo Chenal, one of them?
Chenal, yeah.
Like, he's got him sacked, and Lamar shrugs out of it, and then Zay Flowers adjusts up vertically as soon as he sees his quarterback in trouble, hits him perfectly for a touchdown. That's an incredible Lamar Jackson play that he makes. That's a touchdown on the board. He has one where he rescues the blitzing safety, bats the ball, and Lamar Jackson saves an interception by catching it himself and taking it for yardage. So Lamar made a bunch of spectacular plays in this game. He also made, the critical interception, lobbing it into triple coverage that, maybe ended up costing them the game at the end. So it can be true that Lamar Jackson did not make enough plays in a game where he needed to carry the team because nothing else was going on, and he had to be Mahomes. Or, Mahomes has done that, Brady's done that, other quarterbacks have done that, Lamar's done it before. Like, he did it in previous games this season. He needed to do it in this game, and he wasn't able to, and that is one of the reasons. It's also true that they inexplicably abandoned the run for no good reason. I mean, Gus Edwards, the first time he carried the ball, gained 15 yards, and he carried it one time after that until the fourth quarter. That's ridiculous. Like, what are we doing here? We have a powerful, bruising running back who rattled off 15 yards the first time he touched the ball, and we're basically not going to use him again until late in the game. What? That's ridiculous. Again, maybe it would make sense if you were down, 4 scores and it was all passing all the time, but you weren't. This game was never further than 10 points out of their reach, and they never used Gus Edwards. That, to me, is not good. I mean, we talked penalties, Lamar's mistakes, everybody else's mistake. Coaching, that's a coaching mistake, in my opinion. I don't know why they went away from Gus Edwards, or forget Edwards, but the run game.
Yeah, which includes
concept.
Lamar Jackson.
Right.
Which includes Lamar as part of it, right?
That, I think, is a mistake on that side.
Against a team, again, the Chiefs defense that has EPA per play against or whatever, it's just not very good this year.
It's like, these are, I think they were the number 1 and number 2 pass defenses in the NFL, right?
Right.
So even if you're just looking at it in terms of what is the weakest area of this team, even if it's not a weak area, it's the run game. And we should theoretically have a very powerful, very good run game. So let's try and target that. And again, even if that wasn't necessarily the plan coming into the game, it should have been the adjustment. Like, hey, guys, the pass game isn't really having a lot of joy. They're killing us there. Let's try the run game some.
So all that said, and I think the Ravens defense deserves a ton of credit. There was that one drive, the Kyle Hamilton series, where Kyle Hamilton was in tight coverage as a deep safety. Then he makes a tackle on a screen, tackle for loss or tackle at the line of scrimmage, and then creates quick pressure as a blitzer forces a throwaway from Holmes on 3 straight plays.
Right.
Love it. Kyle Hamilton, outstanding effort. The defense started to force some 3-and-outs and force some punts. One of the biggest plays that stands out to me, so you've got the Zay Flowers fumble at the goal line, right? You have a touchdown opportunity that you've missed. Lamar Jackson gets sacked it was 3rd and 9 on the Kansas City 41. This wasn't all Lamar Jackson. This was Justin Reed, quick win against the back on a blitz. Again, I think Spags does a great job, and the Chiefs just execute on 3rd and long. It was 3rd and 9. You have Justin Tucker as your kicker. You're on the Kansas City 41. If you pick up 5 yards on this play, if you just pick up 5, you're talking fringe field goal range for Tucker, who's maybe the best kicker of all time, or you're just going to go for it on 4th down anyway because you're down 10. You're down 10 at that point. And Lamar gets sacked, and it's 4th and 17, and they have to punt. Then, similarly, they get back in the 4th quarter. They get the Zay Flowers play. He fumbles, and now you're still down 10. Then Lamar comes in, and they're into field goal territory. They have a first down, and he throws it into triple coverage for an interception. So the game management was just awful, right? I mean, not that like Zay wasn't trying to fumble at the goal line. That's just, just bad overall, bad timing, and you reached forward. Maybe you shouldn't have done that. But the Chiefs made the right play at the right time to knock them out of field goal range or to force a turnover just to take points off the board. And, of course, the Ravens made those bad decisions. The Lamar interception was horrendous because it was first down, it was triple coverage, and they're down 2 scores, and they're in field goal range. That's why it all added up to just everything about that play was bad.
And they had that was, as we were saying, that it was a 99-yard drive it would have been if they'd scored at that drive. It would have been, the defining thing. The first play they got out of trouble. They had a 4th down on that play from their own 18-yard line. They went for it. They picked it up. That drive had the potential to be this incredible signature Lamar Jackson drive that completely transforms the game. And you'd done, whatever percentage, not 75% because scoring the touchdown is the hardest part, right? But you'd done a lot of the hard work at that point to even get to that point, and then you just sort of airmailed it all away with a crazy decision into triple coverage that, even if the guy doesn't get across to pick it off, there's 2 other guys converging on it. It was crazy.
And I lied. It was second down. I apologize. The first down play, it was interesting because I think the Ravens were the favorites in this game by the line. But I think there's a quick point where the Chiefs come out and they score, and it's like, we're the underdogs now. Not only are we losing, but we have to play from behind and the whole thing.
They did. If you watch the live line, it was immediately
And of course,
swung.
you're right. The Ravens are now the underdogs and have to play as such. And I thought there was some times they took some deep shots. And I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to just, take some deep shots on first down. But Lamar Jackson, again, your guy, Tony Romo, I thought did a good job of saying he's not giving his receivers opportunities here. He would throw the ball deep and overthrow. He had 3 or 4 just pure overthrows. OBJ, I think Rashad Bateman, there was one in there. Just pure overthrows where he didn't give them an opportunity. The slot fade to Beckham, he just didn't give him a chance. Where if there's a thought process when it's man coverage. If you underthrow it, we know that the underthrown interception is a defensive pass interference is a huge play, but you have to give the guy an opportunity. So that was just another place where I think game management wise and execution wise, Lamar was a little bit off in this game because they took shot plays against the Chiefs defense. Like I said, they're low percentage, but you got to give your guy at least an opportunity to make those plays.
It's got to be like when you're taking those kinds of opportunities, it's because you've identified one-on-one coverage somewhere, and it's relatively safe, right? Like we're giving our receiver a chance to make a play one-on-one against somebody else. It's like the Lions or the 49ers Lions play, right? They took a one-on-one shot with Ayuk downfield against Kendall Vildor because, they liked their chances in that matchup. Now, they probably didn't imagine it unfolding the way it did, right? It clanks off the face of the DB and the receiver catches it. But the point being, I like that as I'm going to take my chances with that matchup. You don't take your chances with a guy into triple coverage. He's never making that play. It's not a high percentage play. And actually, the bigger percentage is something terrible happens, like a turnover. So it was bad.
It was.
Can I point out something that I did love from the Ravens that I thought was kind of interesting? So we talked before the game, the preview, that this was the first AFC title game the Ravens were ever hosting, right? Every time they'd been to the Super Bowl previously, they'd had to go on the road. They never had the 1 seed. So first game they're hosting, obviously they do what you do, which is you bring out Ray Lewis and all that kind of stuff. You get the fans going before the game, right? You make it buzzing. Everything goes out of the building as soon as the Chiefs start the way they did. And it's like, wow, the crowd's gone out of this. This is not a home field advantage anymore. Late in the third quarter, I've never seen this before. Late in the third quarter, they deliberately turned out the lights. Remember when they won the Super Bowl the last time? It was the lights had gone out game, right? They turned out the lights deliberately. It was a TV break or whatever, they turned out the lights and they brought out Terrell Suggs. From hey, look, Suggs is back as another one of those iconic guys. And they brought the crowd right back into it late in the third quarter when they're still only down 10. It's like immediately they got the crowd back into this game that would have been a very big danger of them just leaving, and getting no home field advantage whatsoever for the remainder of the game because The team's down 10. They're not really showing signs of life. Instead, they're like, hey, remember that Super Bowl? And by the way, remember this great player? And then now the crowd's buzzing again. It's like, okay, it didn't work because, Lamar throws the ball into triple coverage. But I thought that was pretty smart. I've never seen a team try and re-energize the crowd late in the game like that in a way beyond, just flashing up the light saying, hey, make noise.
I didn't put the light thing, I didn't put two and two together because it was a commercial break and I checked Twitter and a lot of the reporters who were there were like, the lights just went out.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I was waiting for Nance to come back and be like, we have a power outage, the lights are out, we're going to have a delay. But they came back and it was just like, here's a play. And they're like, oh, during the break, Terrell Suggs. I never put two and two together that they repeated the 2012 Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And then,
I've never seen a team, though, sort of deliberately try and get the crowd back into a game. Because theoretically, you're at home. Like, you should be able to do stuff like that.
You should do that every quarter. If only they had Browns legend Joe Flacco there, maybe to...
maybe the Lions should have sent out Barry Sanders late in the game to rescue it,
Tyler's yelling, no, Flacco's mine now. He's ours. Browns player.
But, if you've got...
It's under contract.
Theoretically, you have home field advantage. You can kind of do things like that to grab the crowd back into it. Forget the...
I would have given Barry a goal line carry. Maybe get him into the end zone in the playoffs,
There was all those people saying, if the Lions made the Super Bowl, they should re-sign Barry for one day to give him a goal line carry, get him a ring.
Oh, they definitely should. Yeah, Walter Payton didn't get that nice carry, the goal line. We got to give it to Barry.
Fortunately, they don't make it, so Barry gets it.
We won't see that.
Still doesn't make a Super Bowl.
Maybe the Niners should do that for Roger Craig. Anyway.
I think Roger had enough rings.
He probably had.
Yeah.
Every Niner in history has had plenty of Super Bowl opportunities. Yeah, man. Chiefs are good.
Yeah.
They did it again.
They really are.
It's the best defense. Look, all season, the defense has been very good and consistent. And I just think it's a combination of everything. They game plan well. They take away what you do well. They take away high percentage stuff.
And now you got Andy Reid with 2 weeks again.
Yeah.
That's always been...
That was the other... Man, when we talk about the Chiefs just feeling like they're in control, early in the game especially, there was a lot of motion. It was like the Chiefs had all the answers for the Ravens. They did a whole lot of running back motion. They would sprint Pacheco out into the flat and then just bring him right back in. And then just read the play off that. Again, I want to give the Ravens a ton of credit too because they adjusted. They figured a lot of stuff out in the second half, and the Chiefs' offense didn't do much. But early on, the Chiefs were just dominating that matchup, and all they had was answers. You have Mahomes' third down stats. There was a lot of 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 5, a lot of 3rd and shorts, and they just had answers for everything that the Ravens were throwing at.
In particular, their defense. We've said that multiple times this season that, ex-good team that ran up against the Ravens didn't have answers for Lamar Jackson, right? The 49ers didn't have any answers for Lamar Jackson when they played. The Chiefs did. That's what this game felt. They had answers for Lamar Jackson, and Jackson wasn't able to make enough plays. The Ravens didn't have the answer to the answer, particularly on that side of the ball. I think their defense did. But, yeah, this is the worst nightmare version for every other team in the NFL. All the way through the season, it's like Kansas City's defense is the best defense that's ever been paired with Patrick Mahomes. It might be good enough that they can still win playing this badly on offense relative to how they've played previously. Nobody really asked the question, but what if they stop playing this badly on offense? What if you suddenly get the old version of the offense back and the best defense that's ever been paired with them before? Because that's currently what we're looking at, and that makes them... I'm amazed that the early line is out and the 49ers are favored for the Super Bowl. I'm kind of staggered by that.
Not even because of the last... the last time they played was last year, and the Chiefs put up over 40 against the Niners, and the Niners were a good defense at the time.
Right.
I think the Chiefs' offense already matches up well against this pass rush. I think they'll negate the pass rush.
I just feel like,
thing.
Have we not learned anything from the last 3 weeks? What are we doing?
I know.
We just learned that you don't, bet against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the playoffs. Their offense is looking good again, even though they didn't put up a ton of points this week. And it is still the best defense that's ever been paired with them. So you have to favor them.
I want to go back to, because the Chiefs are the closest thing we've seen to the Patriots, right? They're comparable in that they're always in the AFC Championship and they can win a Super Bowl now any single year, and they're close to having 3 out of 6 in the Mahomes era. When New England was at their best, They're going to be favored in most games. And I remember thinking, like, this is before teams were going for it on fourth down. But remember thinking, if you're 4th and 1 at the 50 and you're punting, like, you're just turn the volume off, Harry. Turn the volume off, please. If you're 4th and 1 at the 50 and you're punting, like, you're just giving up. You've got no chance. You have to play like an underdog, right? And what I'm sensing with the Chiefs, right? How do they? Like, they're not dominating these games. They're winning by 1 score.
Yeah.
Against the Bengals in the AFC Championship. Last week against the Bills. This week against the Ravens. Ends up being a 1-score game. But at the end of the day, they're not, like, it's James Bradbury holding in the Super Bowl on 3rd down. It's Joseph Asai, late hit, out of bounds on Mahomes. It's today, like, a couple of these personal fouls and fumble at the goal line. I'm not saying the Chiefs aren't earning this, but the Chiefs are they're not making those same mistakes. The other teams are, and there's definitely something to the team that is there every year is taking care of business, and every other team is kind of beating themselves as well at the same time.
It's an exact rerun of history because this is exactly what it was with Tom Brady and the Patriots. Remember, there was a period for his career where if you changed 6 plays, you changed the outcome of 6 Super Bowls. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. It's come down to 1 play here or there, and every single time the Patriots made that play and the other team didn't. And that's what's happening with the Chiefs. Okay, it hasn't been every single time, but they are going to make fewer mistakes than you almost all the time. Now, for some reason in the regular season, that's not what was happening. But as soon as we got to the postseason, they just stopped making those mistakes. And now they're going to make fewer mistakes than you. So the margin for error against Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes and this offense is so small that you can't screw up. You really can't make a big mistake because they're not going to. And they're going to find a way of getting that play in the most critical time. When it's late in the game, they're going to make a big play. They're going to get the perfect pass away to Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Like, you're going to need to do something special to get the play that they're not going to make. And it's possible, but they had that. I mean, there's a bunch of ridiculous stats on Mahomes already in the postseason. But one that I heard in this game was now the only quarterbacks that have beaten him in the playoffs are named Tom Brady and Joe Burrow. Not lost to anybody else. Yeah. Like, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take either the greatest of all time or a guy that basically believes he's the greatest of all time and can play at that level, in any given game. It's going to take somebody like that going up against him with complete and total confidence and having one of their better games, and that's the only way you're beating these guys.
And we'll still come into next year and say, man, the AFC looks loaded. You have Josh Allen in the Bills. You have Lamar in the Ravens.
Right.
Joe Burrow coming back healthy with the Bengals, and Justin Herbert now with Jim Harbaugh there, and it's going to look like another tough road. But right now, the Chiefs, obviously, the team to beat in an AFC that's trying to load up to beat them in particular. So, impressive work by Kansas City.